Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, L'Masechtas Baba Kama Daf Yud Aleph. We're going to begin on the bottom of Yud and Beis. Let's say that Pchas Nevel Tanahi. So we mentioned that if, let's say, you have an animal that dies, and from the time of Misa until Shas Hamad B'Din, the actual court case takes place, the value of that animal goes down because it's a carcass. So the din is that it's a pseida on the nizik. The one who was damaged, that person bears that loss because the mazik only has to start paying mishas misa. Maybe that's a machlokas tanoim. Deciding tarif yitarif yavu aid. As we continue, Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Yavu aidim. Bring witnesses. Shenitrafa ba'oinus, that it died beyond your control. Upater, says Rashi, the shemer sacher pater ba'oinsin. Because we're dealing, this pasuk talks about a shemer sacher, and a shemer sacher is pater when it comes to an oinus. So just bring witnesses that it was an oinus, then you're off the hook. Abashol Omer, yavi aduda lebeistin. You have to bring an aduda, says Rashi, the nevela, to Braistin, and they're going to evaluate how much it's worth. That's what it means. The fact you have to bring it to the Basin, this nevela, but the other opinion doesn't say that. It must be that's goof of the machlokus, whether or not we have to evaluate how much it's worth, not b'shas misa, but even later on, because maybe it's the mazik who has to absorb that loss. Well, the koli alma the nizik, the hachabat tarach nevel kimifagi. The machlokus is whether or not we hold of tarach nevel. So first, let's look at this Rashi. Mala b'hay kimifagi. The ba'oinsin havadi lo polig abashol. Remember they feel nitva ba'oinsin chayiv. Dein shemer sacher chayiv ba'oinsin. There's no way you could say that the machlokus is whether a shemer sacher is chayiv ba'oinsin, because it's not true. You're potter. Rather, the machlokus is maybe whether we hold that when it comes to Pchas Nevel, whether the din is it goes bust to the nizik of the mazik. Gemara says no, it's Tarch Nevel. Says Rashi, Laviyam Amakoim Shemesa, that to bring it from the place where it died, Sham Lamakim Shahaisa Sham. The question is, who has the obligation to have to actually bring this animal from where it died to the basin? That's what it means. Tarach nevela. Okay, let's look at question 12. Ma pchas nevela, ma tarach nevela. Val mi mutal hapchas va tarach. So pchas nevela, we said already what that meant, and it's on the nizik. Tarach nevela is the tirchel havim l'makom shahisa sham. For example, to remove it from the pit, and that's a machlokas exactly who has the chiyuv. Okay, so that is what that's referring to, and it's exactly the same question. The last question for this test, TB 30. Exactly the same question as question 12, TB 30. Okay, so let's continue. Bosanya, and this is Rashi's Benachus as a proof. How do we know it's the nizik who has to remove it from his pit? That the money will return to its owner and it died. So that's what he learns. Mashra says Rashi, Shafa Mace Yashiv L'Balav. Okay. What exactly is this referring to? Ilema de bebira shavi zuzah, yaguda shavi arba. In the pit, it's worth a zuz, and then once you take it out, it's worth more. On the edge, savasabor, at the edge of the pit, it's worth 4. So ki tarach b'nashi tarach. So he's doing it for himself. Says Rashi, b'revach denashi kavid. He's gaining himself. The truth is that taking it out makes no difference. It still has the same value. Is that possible? In the Amri Inshi Kshura B'masa a beam in a city, bezuzah. Shira bedabra is bezuzah. The same beam in a field, even though obviously you have to bring it, it still has the same value. Omer Shmuel. Ein shomen lo leganev lo legazlin elin izakin. We don't evaluate not the ganev, not the gazlan, but damages, says Rashi. So, she'im ganav v'gazel behema. Let's say someone stole an animal or kalim, v'nifchasu etzoi, and it became lower in value. This animal, ein shomen ha-nevela. We don't evaluate this nevela. V'ashvarim l'balim, or let's say a broken kli, shiaser ganav ha'pchas, they has to pay the difference. El yishalom behema v'kalim ba'ulim v'ashvarim shaloi. No, the mazik will keep the shards of glass. He'll keep the nevela, and he has to pay the full thing. It's only when it comes to nezikin, for some reason, we're more lenient to the mazik. V'ani omer aflu shoyel. I say also when it comes to someone who borrows. V'abba moideli, and Abba agrees. So we boil who? Hakam aflu shoyel shaman, that we evaluate, like we're lenient like nezikin. V'abba moideli. Odava hakam v'ani omer aflu shoyel ein shaman v'abba moideli. So what is that did by a shoyel? What is that? It was a little cryptic language. Tashma. So we prove it here. Dahu Gavra, there was a person, the shoyel nagra mechavre. So he borrowed an axe from his friend, Tavra, and it broke. So, also came the Rav, they went in front of Rav. Obviously, you borrow something and it broke, you should pay for it. But the chiddush is, zil shlimle nagra malia. Go and give him a brand new beautiful axe. Shemamina ein shaman. We see, not that you evaluate the difference between a broken axe and a complete axe and you give the difference. No. Just give him a brand new axe, which obviously means ein shaman. Adarabba. B'di amrle Rav Kahana Rav Asi Rav. They said, Dina hachi. Is that the din? V'shasik, and he was silent. Shemamina shaman. Maybe we do evaluate. Okay. Itmar. Omer ulam Rebbe Lazar. Shaman l'ganav l'gazlan. This actually is against what we just said before, that we do evaluate when it comes to someone who stole, that if it becomes an avela, so the din is that he only has to give the difference. Rapapi omer ein shaman. V'hilchas ein shaman. L'ganav l'gazlan. Of l'shoyel shaman. When it comes to shoyel, we are shaman. Rav Kahana. Rav Asi, just as was said before, Rav Kahana Rav Asi, who said, is this really the din? And he was shasik, so we see Taka's shaman. Okay. Question 13. Who gave the shal nag bechavre Tavra, the axe broke. So Mao Tamo Rav Kahana Rav Lezer al Dina the Rav. The Ein Chayev as a shoyel benagra malya, you don't have to give him a new axe. Eli shumo hashvarim, evaluate it being broken. The yashlim erech shenivchas b'shvir bilvad, and just give the difference. Okay. If you have an amniotic sac, that part of it came out Yom Rishon on the first day, Yom Sheni, and some of the amniotic sac came out on the second day, Moinim Rishon. We start counting from the beginning. What is this talking about? Says Rashi. So Shalish Yatsa. So it's brought down. Hamapeles Shilya Yosheva Salah Yimei Tuma. A woman who had a miscarriage and she has an amniotic sac, she has to sit 7 days of Tuma. The Yimei Tahara, as well as the Yimei Tahara, Shin Shila below Vlad, because there's no amniotic sac which doesn't actually have a Vlad. El Shenimuach Batocha. Unfortunately, the fetus disintegrated, but there was a body there, so therefore she has to do the Yimei Tuma, Yimei Tahara, but only part of it came out on one day. So Moin Limit Rishon, says Rashi, Miyom Rishon Tameya. On that first day she's Tamei, Be'afil Have Leida Yavishta, even though it was a dry birth. Okay. Fine. Moinim in a rishon. Back in the Gemara. Amalei Rava, my daitach. What exactly is this thought process? Chumra, you're going strict, and you're saying that she's tamei. She's going to be matama al taharos on the first day, from the time that part of the shilya came out. That's a chumra di asaledi kula, who the kamatarta la marishon, because if we start counting from before, let's say she's counting for 14 days for an akeva. Says Rashi, v'domim shetir b'yom tesvav, the blood that she sees on the 15th day, tahirin, dainu kula, dihavi mani misheni. If we only counted from the second day, then she wouldn't start counting the Yemei Tahara until the next day. So, I understand initially it's a chumrah, but after those, since you're starting the 14 days earlier, so the 15th day is going to happen faster now. To come and Marishon. Now, Omarava Lochash Chesheshes. Mimna lu mimna elasheni. We're choishes, and therefore we say that everything she touches told me on the first day, but we're not going to actually start counting until the second day. So we're machmer on both sides. So my kamash one. So what's the chiddush over here of Ula that he says is choishes? Dein mixas shili b'lavad. Is he coming to tell you that you can't have mixas shilia without a vlad in it, and that's the reason why he's choishes? That maybe Rov came out to Nina. Shilya shiatza miksasa sur b'achila. It says that if the shilya came out, so it's asur b'achila. Says Rashi, asur kula vavol b'shein la vlad. Siman vlad b'isha, siman vlad b'behema. It's the same dinim. Says Rashi, koloimer. Nimnei shashilya siman vlad bein b'isha bein b'behema shein shilya b'vlad. An animal as well as a woman both have an amniotic sac, and you cannot have an amniotic sac unless there was a child there. As we said, the same thing could be by an animal, that the vlad is no longer recognizable. Maybe it came out before shchita. Hayarubo shel uber, that was the majority. But Karmelon yatzaruba harizek vlad kiyolud. It's like it was birthed. They don't need to b'shchitas aim, and therefore this shilya is no longer mutter b'shchitas aim, because if some of it came out, or chayshish, maybe the majority of it came out, and therefore if it was the majority came out before the shchita, so the din is that it's we're chayshish. So the question is, what's the chiddush? We already learned this concept. So ima hasam havamin, as we continue it out from the base. Maybe we would say that only there. Yesh mixa shili b'lo vlad. That there's mixa shili without a vlad. Maybe, okay, amniotic sac has to have a vlad, but maybe mixas of the shilya may not have the vlad. Gzer mixasa atakula, and it's just a gezerah. Kamash malon. Okay, so let's look at Rashi. Gezerah atu heicha de nafka kula. If the whole thing came out, the yasal memer ein kan vlad. And you'll say there's no vlad. Let's say it went back inside afterwards. Tishri b'shchitas aim. Maybe now you could eat this amniotic sac because it was inside the mother, because it returned somehow into the mother. So when it comes to this animal, no, you cannot eat it. Maybe you don't have to be chayshish when it comes to mimatama on the first day. The hasam leikla migzer atakula. The kachazi the mechin nafik vlad b'sheni mitaminalei kamashmalon. Okay. One can certainly ask, what does this have to do with this masechta? Okay, let's look at question 14. Shili shiatz miksasa sur b'achila. He'im taima damasnisim mishum de'ein mixas shili b'lo vlad. Mishum gezerah mixas mixasa atakula. Uma nafkamina ladina bein hatam. Great question. So the reason of the Mishnah is the ein mixas shili b'lo vlad. Even mixas shilia, part of the amniotic sac, has to have a child. V'nafkamina be'isha she'osheves simei tuma b'yetzias mixas shilia datakula leikla migzer be'isha. We're not going to be geyser by kula, like the whole thing comes in, like the whole gezerah by an animal, you may end up eating it. So obviously that's something we're thinking about. So maybe you wouldn't make a gezerah by that case. Okay. So you have a bechor, Adam, says Rashi, a person, firstborn, and he died within the first 30 days of his life. So we don't need to do pidyon aben. That's not necessary. Because we know that it says, it's once child's 30 days old. So you don't need to do the redemption. Maybe you should redeem the child even within 30 days. No, you don't. A animal, again, all these things, the reason why we're mentioning is because it's Ulam or Belezer. Behema a big animal like an elephant, Niknas b'Mashicha, it had this in Kedusha. You can be kind of by pulling it. By giving it over. Lifting it up. Fine. Brothers that divide, Mashalehin Shaman. What is theirs, we evaluate. Mashal B'neihem, what is regarding the children, I'm going to say their sons and daughters, Ein Shaman. Says Rashi. Since these kids are not going to Beis Din, we're not going to be mavaza the children to bring them. So we're not going to do an evaluation for the kids. Even themselves. Let's say you have an older brother who's involved in all the various nechasim, all the possessions, the going-ins and going-outs. So it was okay for him to be involved in this, even if it caused him to spend a little bit more money to wear nice clothes, because he represented the Yerusha, and they didn't mind. So Mashaleim ein shaman. So again, Mishkachsel begadolachi denichelu duletash tamun mili. It's okay because again we want him to look nice, and therefore even though it's a little more expensive, we're not going to be as particular if it wasn't exact. Yomi ulam Rebbe Lezer Shaimer Shemasol Shaimer Potter, famous Gemara, which we'll see in Bomotzia. But Shaimer gives over something to a Shaimer to watch. He's Potter. No question if the new guy is paid. That Uli Ali Lishmiraso, because he's even doing a greater element of Shmir because he's being paid. Even though it's going down in Shmir because now it's being watched someone who's not being paid. Nami Pata Sher Masal Ben Das, which is a machlokas, because Rabbi already know. Pumfakert. Shemer Shemasal Shemer Chayiv. When Shomer gives to a second Shemer, is always Chayiv. Certainly, if it goes down from a Shemer Sachar to a Shemer Chinam, that's certainly not acceptable. Why? Because the guy could say, At mehimisli b'shvua. You I trust. Hi, lo mehimlim b'shvua. I don't care that you were a Shemer Chinam and now you elevated him to a Shemer Sachar status of watching it. Still, the din is chayiv. Yomi ulam Rebbe Lezer. Hilchasa, the halach is like this. Goyvin min ha'avadim. We collect, says Rashi, chayiv min ha'avadim. Some type of an obligation, we can take his slave. We can actually take his slave for a debt. Amar Rav Nachman ulam Rebbe Lezer filo miyasmi. Even if, let's say, we're dealing with the Yisayimim, if the borrower died, and the Eved fell into the hands of the Yisayimim, does he also say that the Baal Chayv can collect Avadim? Lo. Mine. No, he can only collect from the borrower himself. Mine, the fact that he can collect from the Lov himself, that's obvious. Even the shirt on his back, on his shoulders. Of course, it's everything, he has to pay him back. That it was meant to an apotiki. He made the eved as an apotiki, says Rashi. Apotiki is a break of three words. Apotehikoi. That when it comes to the loan, this is where you'll be able to collect from. Kleimer, you'll be able to collect from this eved when it comes time to payment. Yashmi'in and Rabbi Lezer. And the Chiddush of Rabbi Lezer is the im machro. That if, let's say, this eved was sold, you can still collect from this eved, even though the loiva doesn't own the eved anymore. But since the eved was an apotiki, you can collect from the eved. Also, apotiki and the loiva sells him. You can still collect. Shayro apotiki, if you made an ox, so my time, what's the difference between an eved that who's sold, you can still collect him? Mashin can assure you can't. So ha isli kala, vaha leisli kala. This one has a coil, this one doesn't. In other words, we're talking about a person who's an eved. People know about such major transactions, and therefore, you should have realized that there was a lien, if you will. There was an apotiki on this eved. So therefore, because of that, you can lose him. Mashin comes to a shore. As we continued, Beis Amud Aleph, Obasid and Nafik. After Rav Nachman left, Amalei Ula, Hachi Amar Rabbi Lezer, Afil Miyasmi. The truth is, you could even collect this eved from Yusaimim. Rav Nachman Ishtamtin Ula. Says Rashi, Nishmat Mimeni, Vayari Mishum Desirle Avdi Kamataltali Dami, Imisyar Hushema Avkenu Bahaloichas Ukushius. The whole debate was, do we consider this eved to have the status of metaltalin or like karka? Question, we're going to stop there, but TA 29. Ma hanidoin im shaman lagan lagazal l'shoyel u'ma hadin aliba de hilchasa. So this actually we had in question 13, which when it comes to the ganav and the gazlin, we're not shaman. However, actually, there's a little bit more to this. Okay, that's explaining what it is. When it comes to a shoyel, we talk to say we are shaman. Question 30. So that was question TA 29 on Yud Aleph and Aleph. Shili shiatz miksasmi amrishon miksasmi sheni mimate toilin shiatza havlad. So he said, "L'inyan toma chayshim l'rishon, l'inyan minyan minin misheni." Adkan.